So hi everyone, by the way my name is Chris Anthony Carante and today I will be discussing to you the chapter 5. So stay tuned. Okay, since my partner already discussed the 5.1 until 5.8, I'll be continuing to discuss the 5.9. So 5.9 till 5.17 or 16, I think. So let's start with the 5.9, speech act taxonomies. So a lot of research has gone into classifying speech act. These are the illocutionary forces. This is important for a language teaching because a systematic classification of speech act offers a way to organizing the language in teaching and syllabus. So the from the word itself, classifying means to differentiate. Kasi nakakatulong ang differentiate para you can thoroughly understand a certain thing and you can thoroughly identify what topic is this and this one. So it's like dividing, separating the topics or what we call the system. It's called systematic classification. Yeah. So that's it. So let's proceed to the five. There are 5 categories in which put forward the tentative framework by Austin. So the framework of Austin is already discussed by my partner actually, and now there are 5 categories. So the 5 categories are verdictives, exertives, commissive, behavitives, and expositives. So in verdictives, it's giving a verdict from the word verdict as by a jury or per. For example, estimate, reckon, and appraise. While on the exertives naman, as mentioned above, it is the exercise of power, rights, or influence. So under the exertives, there are, for example, appoint, vote, order, urge, advise, or warn. So let's go for number 3, commissive. One of the example of commissive is our example of commissives are like promise, contract, undertake, just like that, an agreement, parang ganon. So sa behavitives naman, it is a miscellaneous group having to do with the attitude and social behavior. For example, apologize, congratulations, or a comment, parang commendation sa isang tao. Sa expositive naman, it's clarifying for reason, argument, communication. Like for example, a reply or argue or a rebuttal or like a concede. Yeah. So as I mentioned earlier about the illocutionary forces. By the way, what is illocutionary? The purpose of the purpose of speech act, like for example, a request to get someone to do something for you. The purpose of the promise is to undertake or to do something in the future. The purpose of description is to presentation or something. So that's it. So let's proceed to the 5.10 speech act taxonomies in language and teaching. Okay, so 5.10 speech act taxonomies in language teaching. So as I have said earlier. So these speech act taxonomies have been developed especially for language teaching syllabus design, like Van E. K. and Alexander 1989, Wilkins 1976. So in this work, National Syllabus presented a framework similar to what is Austin. So di ba si Austin may 5 categories siya. So at the same time na-upload si kani sila Van and Alexander and Dworkin. So number 1 is judgment and elevation. Under sa example ani niya is approving, disappointing, or estimating. So number 2, suasion. For example, persuading or commending or running. Argument. For example, sa argument is reporting, asserting, or rejecting. Yes, rejecting. So number 4 is rational inquiry and exposition. Example niya is comparing or defining or kanang nag-explain ka or something. So number 5, we have the personal emotion. For example, like pleasure, displeasure, sorrows, like that. So, and last but not the least, emotional relation. Like for example, like emotional relation, like emotion, flattering, and thinking, like that. So yeah. So actually, guys, in my PowerPoint presentation, I already posted the framework that Wilkins, Alexander, and Van developed. So you can visit there, or actually it's on the PDF if you don't want to be bothered. So you can actually scan on the PDF or my PPT. So next we have the 5.11 cross-cultural interlanguage pragmatics. So considerable work has been done on how speech acts are performed across languages and culture. Some of this focuses on the native speaker's performance given speech act, while other work focuses on how learners acquire the ability to perform a given speech in a target language. Speech act, which have been focused most intensive study in both approaches, are request, refusal, apologize, and compliment. So under naman si Austin and Cohen's 1983 work on native speaker leadership apologies, typical of the cross-cultural approach. So sila presented na mga like an expression of an apology, like an expression of regret, an offer to apology, or request of forgiveness. Like sa expression of regret, like saying sorry, I'm sorry, like that. Dito naman sa an offer of apology, like I apologize for my mistake they have done. Okay, so a request of forgiveness, like excuse me, I didn't hear it clear. So like that. So number 2, we have naman expression account of the situation, like the bus was so late, like that. So number 3, acknowledgement of the responsibility, like in accepting blame, it's like saying like, yeah, it's my fault, like you accept the blame. We have also expressing lack of intent, like paano ba? Expressing lack of intent is like, oh my god, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it, like that. And we have number 4, an offer to repair. So I will repay for the broken vase, like that. A promise of forbearance, like it's the same like I'm saying apologize or I'm sorry, it won't happen again, just like that. So the best known work represented second approaches on transitive pragmatics mentioned above, interlanguage pragmatics and cross-cultural speech realization project. This is a large project, ridiculously completion test. So it is a big project wherein it is dominated by different people. So it's already explained on the PDF. So let's move on to the 5.2 instructive pragmatics. So as well as research on cross-cultural and interlanguage pragmatics, this is in connection with the 5.11. Conducted in a field which has been referred as instructive pragmatics, the investigation speech act development in the third context, Rose and Casper's 2001 pragmatic in language teaching in landmark text and field. So this study actually talks about when we say instructed pragmatics, because the definition here was really, it's difficult for me to understand, so I'm gonna use the Google, I mean the definition in the Google. So instructed pragmatics, this definition prioritizes speaker hearer interaction in a social cultural context, suggesting that a pragmatic competence refers to one's knowledge of linguistic norms, social convention, and one's ability to use this knowledge basis on your social bound interaction. From the word itself, interaction, you interact with other people using the knowledge of linguistic, the norms, and the social convention. So I think that's the explanation about the instructive phlegmatics, what being instructed to you. Like that. So let's proceed to 5.13, method of researching speech acts. So we mentioned above that discourse competition tests were used to collect data in a speech act research discussed. Clark and Baggerer 2004 identified the various methods used in literature in collecting speech data. So they identified 3 approaches. So I'll be discussing the 3 approaches today. So here's are the 3 approaches. So armchair, field and laboratory, Jacker 2019, self-classified these approaches as follows. Armchair is divided into philosophic and interview. Field is divided into diary. Philological conversation, analytic, and corpus, while laboratory is divided into discourse, competition, task, and role play. So ayan. So let's move on to 5.14, critic. So there are 6 subtopics. So let's discuss first the number 1, how universal are speech categories. All language and cultural speech act, but they are not in the same. Originally do not have verbs correspond things apology, but they have verbs and speech act which have no names in English. So that's the explanation about this, how universal language or speech act categories. So I'll be explaining it thoroughly by, so number 1. So the question is how universal speech categories are. So speech act occurs in everyday society, like with the various ranges of explicitness for a second language learner. It's important to know which speech act are different in the first target language, how they different, and what is not appropriate to say. So it's very self-explanatory that it's very universal, but then again, it should have a parameter and a limitation in order to have a harmony and to avoid chaos. Yes. So number 2, how many speech acts are there? So there are 3 types of acts in speech acts. So they are locutionary, illocutionary, and pre-locutionary. So it considers 3 levels of components of utterances. So locutionary, it is the acts in making meaningful statements saying that something that our hearer understands. So illocutionary naman is saying something with a purpose such as to inform, while the perlocutionary act saying something that causes someone to act. So number 3, the contrast between specific and diffuse act. So the difference between the specific and diffuse, a company exists to perform is an efficient way to a certain function and duty. That's the specific, while while the companies hire people to perform this function which help the machine to equipment. Based on this, people are remunerated. Ayan. So ang diffuse naman is a company made up of group people that works together. So more or less, the specific is the detailed meaning, while the diffuse naman is just the shallow explanation of a certain thing. So number 4, the size of speech act realization form. So one of the important area of grammatic is the speech act, which are communicative acts that convey intended language function, which act include functions such as requests, apologies, suggestion, commands, offers, and appropriate response to those acts, as what I have explained a while ago. So number 5, discrete categories versus scale meaning. Scale meaning. Okay, discrete categories versus scale meaning. So discrete data is numerical type of data that includes whole, while whole concrete numbers with a specific fixed data value determined by counting. Continuous data includes conflict numbers, and varying data values are measured over a specific in time interval. So that's discrete scale measurement. While the last one is empirical versus introspective data. These are the, when we say introspective data, it is the examination of one conscious thoughts and feelings. In psychology, the process of introspection relies on the observation of one's mental state, one mental state, while the spiritual context, it may refer to explanation of one soul. Ayan. So, let's move on to the application of pedagogy. In pedagogy, there are also principles. So, pedagogy is a word that used to describe the art and science of teaching. Pedagogical roles are the many varied of teachers may perform while teaching, such as instructing, soliciting, responding, and reading. So there are examples. I'll cite some example of pedagogical skills include alternating your tone voice, asking for question, find out their prior knowledge, reward for the effort, changing up the classroom layout, sitting experience, differentiation, and space separation. So, awareness raising activity prepare learners noticing that include focusing on speech act to perform which deviation of L1 norm is most critical, meaning and interpersonal relation, engaging learner in discourse competition talk, using authentic materials, encouraging learner to become their own, and observe how speech act realized in a particular manner. So, yes,